I seem to be on this constant quest to find myself the perfect G-Shock. I keep looking, I keep finding G-Shocks that I like, but there seems to always be a few problems with them, or things that I would like changed. Well, today I'm going to show you the GBD200, and I think it is the closest that I've come to the perfect G-Shock for me. Hello, you're watching James. My name's James, you're watching me, and I'm talking about watches. Well, yes, I think I finally found the right G-Shock for me. I still don't think I found the perfect G-Shock for me, but I'm starting to get the impression that the perfect G-Shock for me does not exist. So instead, I've found one that is so close that I'm going to consider this the right one for me. And I think it's the right one for me because I like the looks, I like the style, I like the quality, and it is priced really well. The cheapest that I've been able to find this G-Shock GBD200 is about 150 Australian dollars. Now stick around to the end of the video and I'm going to talk a little bit more in detail about that price. Now this watch actually comes with some smart features as well as some inbuilt exercise tracking features. Now I have not been using really either of those features. That's not why I bought this watch. And as such, I'm not really going to go into too much depth about those two parts of this watch because I've actually just been wearing this as a G-Shock. So that's how I want to review it, as a G-Shock. If you are keen on those sort of features and you want to see some more in-depth stuff, there's some great reviews out there that go into it in detail. I just don't think there's any point in me spending a heap of time learning those features since I haven't actually been using them. And of course, you don't actually have to use those features either. I've been wearing this watch for months and months and really don't use many of those features whatsoever. So let's flip the camera around now and let's jump into the review of my G-Shock. So here we have my G-Shock GBD200 with the outer box, the inner tin with some foam in there, which was what it came on, the module instruction manual there, the Australian warranty and the international warranty. But of course, we're here to see the G-Shock, aren't we? Now, on paper for me, G-Shocks make a lot of sense. Lots of features, easy to read, it lasts for a long time, it can take lots of whacks and hits, and they are affordable. So on paper, I think any G-Shock really makes sense. But this one makes more sense to me because it has some features that really stood out to me straight away. Firstly, that negative display. I wasn't really keen on it, but I am so impressed how good this negative display is. I've never come across a negative display that stands out like this. And the feel and the quality of it. I've had multiple G-Shocks. Some of them feel fairly good quality, some of them don't, some of them feel a little bit sort of light on, but this is the best feeling G-Shock I've ever had in my hand, and I really do appreciate that. Now, as I mentioned, this watch has some semi-smart features with some messages, with connectivity to your phone, gives you some alerts, and also does a lot of fitness tracking, especially for running. Now, I don't do a lot of running. I haven't been utilizing this one for that. I also hasn't really been utilizing it for the smart features. I have had it connected to my phone, however, purely those to keep the time up to date. So there's no requirement to then manually change this one as we go along. But what I want to do is actually really show you this watch as a watch, because that's what I've been using it as. But let's go through the features anyway quickly, because up here we've got the connectivity to my phone. Now, whenever I sort of do recording, I put my phone onto flight mode, so that's why it's not connecting well. But we've got the date there, we've got the time in 24 hours, which I prefer, day of the week, and the seconds. Bottom left here we have the mode, so let's start flicking through and see what happens. This goes into workout mode, which I absolutely have no idea how to use, so I'm not going to bother trying to tell you. Next one is a stopwatch, which is actually really helpful. I haven't used it, but it's helpful. What I do like, however, is that it maintains the time down there, so you can still see it even if you are using the stopwatch. Activity tracking, again, no idea how to use that, so I'm not going to bother trying to explain that one to you. Notifications. I have tried looking through this a little bit in order to sometimes sort of check messages, clear messages, and it's somewhat useful, I guess. It can sort of read your SMS messages and text messages and online messages coming through this, but to be honest, I found it probably slightly more annoying than anything else, so I've skipped over that and gone back to just using this screen. Now, of course, we have 4 buttons on this watch, both on both sides: mode, display, start, and lap. This is obviously going to be utilized for those sports features. And here we have the illumination. And the illumination is actually really, really good. It's actually one of the favorite parts about this watch, and it's what I really wanted from a G-Shock as well, is some really good illumination. And this one here is exactly what I was chasing. Now, when it comes to dimensions of G-Shocks, they're not quite as applicable as other watches, but if you're looking at the sort of right across here from one side to the other side, it's 44.4 millimeters. The width of the watch is 13.4 millimeters. Now, lug to lug, well, it's slightly not applicable, but I guess if it's just the case there itself, it's 48 millimeters.
Lug width, again, not really applicable, but I guess if you measured across there, we're looking at 26.3 going down to 18.7. But weight certainly is applicable and is really an interesting one to know in regards to these sort of watches. And this one is only 58.7 grams. Of course, being a G-Shock, it has a lot of protection inbuilt. You can see it is all black and it's got some grey accents, which I really like. The screen is protected, which is really nice. There's a little bit of stuff written on there, like the water resistance of 200 meters, Casio. We've got G-Shock built into there, protection written into there. But the things that I like about this one are some extra features, some that I haven't really seen on many other G-Shocks. That's when you sort of turn it over and start looking at the buttons. I love the buttons on this G-Shock. So you have this sort of inbuilt into the case somewhat, and they've got a bit of a touch of grey running down it as well. Much nicer buttons than any other G-Shock that I've owned. You'll see there's a flash of red on that button. That is because it's part of the sports features of this one. I also like how there's a bit of a divider here. Although it looks black, it's actually slightly see-through black. Just sort of divides the case to the strap. And let's talk about the strap, because the strap feels amazing. It is, to me, one of the absolute standout features, because not only is it going to be hard wearing, but it feels good and it has a real thickness to it. Some G-Shocks that I've owned feel a little bit flimsy, and although I know they're not flimsy because they're a G-Shock, it still feels that way, and I like feeling a little bit of sort of tough sort of strap on there, and this one definitely has that. Heaps of adjustment as well, because I think anybody in the world would be able to wear this one. Hardware is pretty good, a little bit of plastic, a little bit of metal. I've been hanging on to it because it has been rattling around. Obviously when you're wearing this watch it doesn't do that, it's just when you're holding the watch like this. Double keepers, they're set together so you can't divide those, work quite well. On the back here is one of the other features that I quite like, is that there's little bits of plastic there. It sort of helps draw the strap into that case, makes it nice and comfortable on wrist. Now on the back, as you do with most G-Shocks, you get a lot of information telling you that it's shock resistance, tells you what the modules it is, telling you which model it is. This one here is made in Thailand, and it shows you that it is a stainless steel screw-on case back. On wrist, super, super comfortable, as I generally expect from G-Shocks. Just feels nice and light, nice and comfortable, doesn't pull my arm hairs whatsoever. Plenty of adjustment, as I mentioned. You could go to a much smaller wrist or a hugely large wrist. Probably because it is quite long, however, when you look up, there is a bit of a tag. So I do have to end up pushing that up there a little bit, which is probably not perfectly ideal. I guess I could chop it, but I don't like doing that to watches. So it feels nice on wrist on my 6 3/4 or around about 17 centimeter wrist. Just a really cool watch to wear. And it's something that I've been wearing a lot because this has been my work watch, so I wear it a lot. And because I wear it a lot, I wanted to wear something that I like. And this is by far probably the best G-Shock that I've ever come across. So what is it that I like about it? What don't I like about it? And what would I change? Well, when it comes to G-Shocks, I'm looking for functionality, I'm looking for comfort, and I'm looking for legibility. And although it is a negative display, great legibility. So I actually quite like the negative display. Probably wouldn't pick it, but it works well. I like the overall look. Love the buttons. They are really a standout feature to me, as well as the feeling of the strap itself. Absolutely fantastic. Being all black as well, nice and discreet on wrist. I do appreciate that. I probably dislike the smart functions of it, to be honest. I'd actually probably like to be able to get this watch without those features because I don't need them, I don't want them, and I have to admit when it is connected to my phone and I get a message on my phone, I get a beep from this and it tells me who sent the message, which can be slightly helpful, but it also can be slightly annoying. The only thing I really would change, besides probably removing those smart features or at least having the option of a no smart option, is I probably would still go to a normal display. Although it's super, super legible and I've not had any issue with legibilities, I'd like the option of it, and I probably would always pick a positive display over a negative display. But I want to talk about price about this one because prices of the G-Shocks are interesting because they're all somewhat affordable, but I'll do that in a little bit more detail by flipping back to me.
Well, I think like most Casio G-Shocks, this watch is priced at a reasonable price. When I had been looking at it, been thinking about buying one, I'd seen that you could get it down to about $150. Certainly other retailers are trying to sell it for more, but when I could fairly constantly and consistently see it for around $150, I sort of thought, that's not a bad price, especially considering how much I'd spent on G-Shocks prior to this one. But then when I had it in hand, I have to admit I was rather impressed. $150 for this watch felt like a really reasonable amount of money. It certainly feels better quality than other G-Shocks that I owned. It certainly looked better than other G-Shocks that I'd owned, and I certainly like some of the features of this G-Shock compared to others that I had owned. And now that I've had it on wrist for months, I have to say that the only competitors for this one is probably other G-Shocks, or possibly some of the cheaper Casios. However, those cheaper Casios, albeit cheaper, certainly don't have the strength, the feeling, and all the features that this one has. Those other G-Shocks that I've enjoyed, that I've owned, possibly maybe slightly cheaper as well. However, they certainly don't feel as good quality. The strap is nowhere near as good. I don't like the buttons on them as much as this one. And again, this one has a lot more features to offer. So realistically, at this price, it's probably the best G-Shock that I have come across. And guys, if you enjoyed this video, maybe check these ones out next.